The taste of betrayal, I've learned, is a slow poison. It doesn't hit you all at once, not like a sudden blow. It seeps in, corroding your very soul until one day you realize the person you trusted most has been poisoning you all along. For me, that day started with a stupid, innocuous notification on my phone. A shared album. Just a picture of Chloe, my fiance, laughing, her arm wrapped around Mark, my best friend. They were at that little Italian place we always went to. Our place, the one where I proposed to Chloe just 6 months prior. My stomach lurched. It was a subtle shift in the universe, a tiny crack in the foundation of my meticulously built life. But I knew instantly something was deeply, terribly wrong. Chloe and I had been together for 5 years. We lived in a cozy two-bedroom apartment in London, where I worked as a software developer and she was a budding marketing executive. We talked about buying a house, about kids, about growing old together. Our wedding was set for next summer, the invitations already designed, a down payment made on the venue. She was my rock, my confidant, the woman who understood me like no one else. Mark, on the other hand, was my oldest friend. We'd been inseparable since primary school, weathered awkward teenage years, celebrated university graduations, and helped each other through countless heartbreaks. He was the brother I never had, the person I could always count on, no matter what. To see them together in our place, looking so comfortable, so intimate, struck a chord of dissonance so strong it vibrated through my bones. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a work dinner? Chloe often had client meetings. Maybe Mark was just tagging along? He lived nearby. But the feeling in my gut persisted. The way her hand rested casually on his arm, the angle of their heads, the genuine, unforced laughter that seemed to exclude the rest of the world. It was a look I recognized, a warmth that had, for years, been exclusively reserved for me. The insidious whisper of doubt began, a tiny pinprick that quickly became an unbearable itch. That night, when Chloe came home, she was her usual self, beaming, tired, but happy. "Rough day, babe," she mumbled, dropping her bag by the door. "Client dinner ran late." I asked as casually as I could manage. "Oh, which client?" She hesitated for a fraction of a second, barely perceptible, but I caught it. "Just the usual. You wouldn't know them." My heart sank. A small lie. A trivial one, perhaps, but it was a lie nonetheless. Mark hadn't been mentioned. My best friend enjoying a late dinner with my fiancé, and she felt the need to hide it. That's when the first crack widened into a fissure. The next few days were a blur of forced normalcy. I watched them both with new eyes, dissecting every interaction, every shared glance, every innocent joke. Chloe's phone was suddenly off limits, always face down, always muted. Mark became evasive, canceling our usual Tuesday pub night with flimsy excuses. When I suggested a triple date, Chloe and Mark both found reasons to decline, independently but with an uncanny synchronicity that set off alarm bells. My mind, usually focused on algorithms and code, was now a detective's board, connecting dots that I desperately wished weren't there. I started small. I checked our shared digital photo albums, the ones we curated for our wedding website. No pictures of Chloe and Mark together alone, but I noticed a pattern. Mark was always present in photos where Chloe looked particularly radiant, particularly happy, and he was always close. Too close, perhaps, for just a friend. It sounds paranoid, I know, but once that seed of doubt is planted, it grows into a monstrous vine, choking out reason. My tech-savvy brain, a tool I usually employed for noble purposes, now turned inward, becoming an instrument of suspicion. I knew Chloe's phone passcode. It was our anniversary date. I knew her email password too. We had no secrets, or so I thought. One night while she was showering, I picked up her phone. My hands trembled, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. It felt dirty, invasive, a violation of the trust I still clung to. But the alternative, living in this agonizing uncertainty, was worse. I scrolled through her messages, nothing obvious, but then I noticed a hidden folder, an app disguised as a calculator. My breath caught in my throat. I tried a few common passwords, then our anniversary date again. It opened, and there it was. Hundreds of messages between Chloe and Mark. My world imploded. The texts were explicit, not just physically, but emotionally. Pet names, longing, promises of a future together, whispered confessions of love. They detailed secret rendezvous, shared dinners, weekends away under the guise of work trips for Chloe, or visiting family for Mark. They mocked me, my habits, my aspirations. Alex is so predictable, one message read. He'll never suspect a thing, another. Soon, babe, soon we'll be free. Free. From me. My eyes blurred, tears streaming down my face, hot and stinging. It wasn't just an affair, it was a deep, calculated betrayal, a mockery of everything I held dear. They hadn't just cheated, they had planned to erase me, to steal my life and walk off into the sunset with it. The shock was so profound, so devastating, it emptied me. I felt like a hollow shell, every emotion drained, leaving behind a cold, burning rage. My fiancée, the woman I swore to spend my life with, and my best friend, my brother, plotting against me, laughing at me right under my nose. The betrayal felt absolute, total. I didn't confront them then. I couldn't. I just sat there, the phone heavy in my hand, the messages a searing brand on my soul. My loyal and trusting nature had been my greatest weakness, leaving me utterly vulnerable to their deceit. But in that moment, a new resolve began to form, hard and sharp, like obsidian. They thought I was predictable. They thought I'd never suspect. They were wrong, and they would pay. The next few weeks were a living hell. I lived a double life, playing the oblivious fiancé and friend, while secretly gathering every shred of evidence I could find. My mind, once clouded by grief, sharpened with purpose. I installed a keylogger on our shared home computer, one we both used, so legally permissible. I bought a discreet voice recorder and hid it in the living room, activating it whenever I left them alone, claiming a sudden work errand. My tech skills, once used for building, were now expertly deployed for dismantling. I copied every message, every photo, every email I could access from Chloe's disguised folder onto an encrypted drive. I meticulously logged dates, times, locations. Each piece of evidence was a fresh stab to the heart, but also a weapon in my growing arsenal. One evening, I overheard a conversation. Chloe was talking to Mark on the phone, unaware I was listening from the next room. He's just so boring, Mark. So predictable. I need excitement. You get that, don't you? And Mark's smug reply, "Of course, babe. You deserve better. You deserve me." My blood ran cold. It wasn't just physical, it was emotional. They were dissecting me, trivializing our years together, openly flaunting their disdain. This wasn't merely a lapse in judgment. This was a fundamental disrespect, a calculated effort to dehumanize me to justify their vile actions. The next revelation came from an unexpected source, our joint bank account. I had always trusted Chloe with the budgeting, given her marketing background. She handled most of our shared expenses. I noticed small, recurring withdrawals listed as household expenses, but larger than usual. I cross-referenced them with the dates from her hidden messages to Mark. Almost every time they had a secret rendezvous, there was a withdrawal. They were financing their affair with our money. My money. The financial betrayal added another bitter layer to the already rotten cake. They were not only stealing my heart and my best friend, they were financially exploiting me. I realized I couldn't do this alone. The emotional toll was immense, and the need for legal counsel was clear. I reached out to my older sister, Emily. She was a brilliant solicitor, sharp, cynical, and fiercely protective of her family. I called her, my voice breaking. "Emily, I need help. Real help." When I finally poured out the whole sordid story, the shared album, the hidden phone, the messages, the financial exploitation, she listened in stunned silence. When I finished, she was pale, her eyes filled with a mixture of horror and righteous fury. "Alex," she said, her voice trembling, This is monstrous, and we are going to make them pay. Emily, usually pragmatic and reserved, was livid. Her anger was a balm to my raw pain. She immediately connected me with a private investigator she trusted, a no-nonsense former police detective named Sarah. Sarah's job was to corroborate everything, to gather irrefutable, independently verifiable evidence that would stand up in court. She started discreet surveillance, tracking Mark's movements, confirming the secret meetings, photographing them together. The evidence mounted, meticulously documented, and legally obtained. Sarah even managed to trace some of the suspicious household expenses from our joint account to purchases for Mark or for their shared excursions. They weren't just using my money, they were actively funding their illicit activities with my hard-earned cash. The hardest part was maintaining the charade, pretending to be happy, pretending to be oblivious. Every time Chloe would kiss me goodnight, or Mark would clap me on the shoulder and say, "How's my favorite mate doing?" a cold fury would coil in my stomach. I'd smile back, my eyes dead inside, planning their downfall. I realized they weren't just lovers, they were collaborators bound by their shared deception, their contempt for me a unifying force. One day I found a new, alarming piece of information. Mark had been subtly trying to undermine my professional reputation. I worked for a tech company, and Mark was a sales executive at a rival firm. I uncovered emails between Mark and a former colleague of mine, subtly suggesting I was losing my edge, distracted, and making questionable decisions in my role as lead developer. He was attempting to sabotage my career, painting me as incompetent to make himself seem more desirable to Chloe, or perhaps even to steal business opportunities from me. This was no longer just about love and friendship. It was a deliberate, calculated attack on every aspect of my life. The malice was staggering. The question of how to expose them consumed me. A quiet breakup wouldn't be enough. They deserved to face the full weight of their deceit, publicly, unequivocally. I wanted their carefully constructed lives, their reputations to shatter just as mine had. Emily and I strategized for weeks. We decided on a public, undeniable confrontation, designed for maximum impact and irrefutable exposure. The perfect opportunity arose, our engagement party. A lavish event we had planned for months where all our friends, family, and colleagues would be present. The irony was almost poetic. They had celebrated their betrayal under my nose. Now they would be exposed under everyone's. I sent out the final invitations, my hand steady. I called Mark, expressing my excitement for him to be there. My best man. He sounded genuinely touched, completely oblivious to the trap I was meticulously setting. Chloe, too, was buzzing with excitement, talking about the dress, the flowers, the future we would never have. Each word felt like a fresh cut, but I endured it, focusing on the inevitable, satisfying denouement. The day of the engagement party arrived. The venue was beautiful, filled with laughter, music, and the warmth of friends and family. I played the part of the happy groom-to-be, smiling, shaking hands, making small talk. Chloe was radiant in her white dress, clinging to my arm, her eyes sparkling with what I now knew was duplicity. Mark arrived, looking sharp, giving me a hearty handshake, his gaze lingering on Chloe for a fraction of a second too long. The air was thick with their secret, a poison that only I could smell. The moment came. Towards the end of the evening, after the toasts and speeches, I took the microphone. The room quieted, expectant. Chloe smiled up at me, a vision of innocence. Mark raised his glass, a smug look on his face. "Friends, family," I began, my voice clear and strong, despite the tremor in my hands. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate what I thought was the beginning of my future with Chloe. But tonight, I have a different kind of truth to share." A ripple of unease went through the crowd. Chloe's smile faltered. Mark's glass lowered slowly. I continued, "You see, for the past few months, I've been living a lie. Not one of my own making, but one woven by two people I loved and trusted implicitly." I paused, letting the words hang in the air. "The truth is, Chloe and Mark have been having a secret affair. They have been laughing at me, manipulating me, and even using our shared finances to fund their illicit activities. Gasps erupted. Chloe's face went white. Mark dropped his glass, the sound echoing in the sudden silence. "I have proof," I stated, my voice unwavering. "Meticulously documented. Text messages, photos, audio recordings, financial records. Evidence of their betrayal, their contempt, their deliberate plot to destroy my life." At that moment, Emily, my sister who stood by my side, projected the contents of my encrypted drive onto the large screen, typically used for our engagement photo montage. The first image was a screenshot of the damning messages between Chloe and Mark. Then came the photos, the ones from the Italian restaurant, then more intimate ones taken in hotel rooms, cars, places where they thought they were safe, unseen. The audio clips, subtle but clear, played their voices mocking me, plotting their future. The financial records detailing the household expenses used to fund their dates. The room erupted. Shouts, accusations, cries of disbelief. Chloe screamed, "Alex, you psycho, how could you?" Trying to gaslight me one last time, but it was too late. Her face was a mask of horror and fury. Mark tried to make a break for it, but Sarah, the PI, discreetly placed herself by the exit, blocking his path. He was trapped. The carefully constructed facade of their lives, their public images, shattered into a million pieces before everyone's eyes. Their families were there, utterly mortified. Chloe's mother started crying, her father looking like he'd been punched. Mark's parents were pale with shock, trying to pull him away, but he was frozen, exposed. Friends, once shared, now picked sides, some disgusted, some simply bewildered. The atmosphere was a chaotic mix of anger, shame, and disbelief. The immediate aftermath was a media frenzy. Someone at the party had inevitably recorded the entire confrontation, and it went viral. News outlets picked up the story. Fiancé and best friend exposed in shocking engagement party reveal. Their names, their faces became synonymous with betrayal. Chloe lost her job almost immediately. Her company, a big name in marketing, couldn't afford the reputational damage of having a known fraudster and manipulator on staff. Her promising career vanished overnight. Mark, too, faced professional ruin. His rival company fired him, citing unethical conduct and severe reputational risk. His network of contacts, his charm, became useless against the avalanche of public condemnation. Emily, my lawyer sister, had filed a civil lawsuit against both of them for fraud, emotional distress, and defamation. The evidence was overwhelming. We meticulously proved how they had manipulated me, financially exploited me, and deliberately tried to sabotage my career. The court awarded me a substantial sum in damages, not just for the financial losses, but for the profound emotional trauma they inflicted. Their assets were frozen, their savings seized to cover the judgment. They were financially ruined, their future prospects bleak. I eventually had to move apartments. The memories were too painful, the ghosts too prevalent. But with the legal victory, the public exposure, and their reputations in tatters, a profound sense of closure began to settle in. It wasn't the kind of revenge that brought joy, but a quiet satisfaction that justice had been served. They had tried to destroy me, but instead they had destroyed themselves. The healing process was long and arduous. Therapy helped me navigate the complex emotions of grief, anger, and profound loss. I learned that my trusting nature wasn't a weakness, but a vulnerability that I now needed to guard. I started building my life anew, focusing on my career, on genuine connections, on trust that was earned, not freely given. My relationship with Emily deepened, a bond forged in fire. My real friends rallied around me, proving that true loyalty still existed. I heard whispers about Chloe and Mark. They tried to stick together for a while, a mutual commiseration in their shared downfall. But betrayal, once practiced, becomes a habit. Their relationship, built on lies and deceit, couldn't withstand the pressure of public shame and financial ruin. They eventually turned on each other, blaming, accusing, their toxic connection finally collapsing under its own weight. They were left with nothing but the wreckage of their own making. Sometimes I still think about that first photograph, the one that started it all. The pain is duller now, a distant echo rather than a piercing scream. I learned the hard way that not everyone deserves your trust, and that sometimes the ones closest to you can inflict the deepest wounds. But I also learned that truth has a way of coming to light, and that karma, though sometimes slow, is always delivered. I am stronger now, wiser, and more resilient. The bitter taste of betrayal has faded, replaced by the quiet strength of survival, and the unwavering belief in my own ability to rebuild. This wasn't a story of vengeance, it was a story of standing up for myself, exposing the ugly truth and reclaiming my life from the ruins of their deceit.